My sister got with my boyfriend when we were 22, announcing she was pregnant with his child at my graduation party. A decade later, my husband showed up at her wedding, wearing the same suit he wore to our wedding 3 years earlier. She froze when he took the microphone during the vows and said, "Sarah, before you marry my best friend from childhood, I think everyone should know about the 15 messages you sent me last month asking me out for a drink." He then projected screenshots of her messages onto the big screen, saying she always regretted not getting with him first, while the groom tore off his ring and ran out. My sister tried to say it was a lie, but my husband even had the drunk audio messages she'd sent, confessing that she only got with my ex to make me jealous. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as Sarah's face drained of all color. 200 guests sat frozen in their seats, eyes darting between the giant screen displaying her desperate texts and her trembling figure in that $10,000 wedding dress. Her fiancé Marcus stood at the altar, his hands clenched into fists, staring at my husband Daniel with a look of pure devastation. The silence in that ballroom was so complete I could hear my mother's sharp intake of breath 3 tables away. Daniel stood there in his navy suit, the same one he'd worn when he married me 3 years ago, completely calm as he scrolled through more screenshots on his phone. Sarah had sent him messages at 2 a.m, slurred voice recordings about how she'd always wanted him, how she only took my boyfriend Jason back in college to hurt me because I was Dad's favorite. The audio played through the venue's speakers, her drunk voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers. "I never loved Jason, Dan. It was always you. Victoria doesn't deserve someone like you." Marcus ripped the wedding band off his finger and threw it at Sarah's feet before storming out of the ballroom. The massive oak doors slammed behind him with a sound like a gunshot. Sarah spun toward me, mascara already streaking down her perfectly made-up face, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my emerald dress, the same shade I'd worn as her maid of honor 10 years ago when she announced her pregnancy at my graduation party. What nobody in that room knew was that Daniel and I had been planning this moment for 6 months. What they didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just some random fiancé. He was Daniel's childhood best friend who'd asked him to be his best man. What they really didn't know was that Sarah had been texting Daniel ever since she'd seen our wedding photos on social media, and we'd been collecting every single message, every voicemail, every pathetic attempt she'd made to destroy my marriage, the same way she'd destroyed my college relationship. The relationship between Sarah and me had been complicated since childhood. She was older by 3 years, beautiful in that effortless way that made everyone turn their heads. I was the studious one, the one with perfect grades and scholarships, the one Dad actually praised at dinner. Mom always said Sarah got her looks. I got Dad's brains. Like that somehow made us even. Growing up, she'd steal my dates, copy my style just to do it better, tell my friends secrets I'd shared with her in confidence. But the thing with Jason, that was different. That was calculated cruelty. I met Jason during my junior year at Northwestern. He was a business major with dark eyes and an easy smile, the kind of guy who brought me coffee during late-night study sessions, and actually listened when I talked about my dreams of opening my own marketing firm. We dated for 2 years, serious enough that I'd started looking at rings online, imagining a future with him. Sarah had just moved back home after dropping out of design school, working random retail jobs and complaining about how boring her life was. She showed up at our apartment one night when Jason was there alone, waiting for me to get back from a study group. I came home 3 hours later to find them on our couch, her shirt on the floor, both of them frozen with guilt written all over their faces. Jason stammered some excuse about being drunk, about it being a mistake. Sarah just smiled at me. That same cold smile she'd given me when she'd beaten me in our high school talent show by performing the exact routine I'd been practicing for months after I'd shown it to her. 2 months later, at my college graduation party, the one celebration that was supposed to be entirely mine, Sarah stood up during my father's toast and announced she was 12 weeks pregnant with Jason's baby. My mother burst into tears, Dad looked like someone had punched him in the stomach, and my moment of achievement became about Sarah's crisis. Again, always. Jason proposed to her that night in front of everyone, his eyes never meeting mine as he got down on one knee. They were married 4 months later in a rushed courthouse ceremony. I wasn't invited. I spent my graduation money on therapy instead of the Europe trip I'd planned, trying to understand why my own sister would do something so deliberately cruel. Their daughter Emma was born 7 months after the wedding, healthy and full term, which meant Sarah hadn't been 12 weeks pregnant at all. She'd lied about the timeline to maximize the drama at my graduation. For years, I kept my distance. I moved to Chicago, threw myself into building my career, avoided family gatherings where I'd have to see them playing happy family. Mom called it being petty. Dad understood but wouldn't get involved, said sisters needed to work these things out themselves. I worked 70-hour weeks, climbed the corporate ladder at a major advertising firm, made a name for myself. I dated occasionally, but kept everyone at arm's length, terrified of being betrayed again. Then I met Daniel at a marketing conference in Boston. He was giving a presentation on digital brand strategy, confident without being arrogant, brilliant without being condescending. We talked for 6 hours straight at the hotel bar that night, about everything except my family. He was a consultant, traveled frequently, had that rare combination of ambition and kindness. When he kissed me goodnight, it felt like coming home. Daniel knew about Sarah from the beginning. I told him everything on our third date, expecting him to run. Instead, he took my hands and said, "The people who hurt us don't get to define our worth." We dated long distance for 8 months before he relocated to Chicago to be with me. He proposed on the anniversary of the night we met, in that same hotel bar, with a ring he'd designed himself. Our wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and my parents. Sarah wasn't invited. She sent a gift anyway, a crystal vase with a card that read, "Wishing you all the happiness I found with Jason." I threw the vase in the trash and blocked her number. For 3 years, I lived in blissful ignorance of whatever drama she was creating in her life. Then 6 months ago, Daniel's phone buzzed during dinner. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and showed it to me. A message from an unknown number. "Hey Dan, it's Sarah, Victoria's sister. Got your number from your business website. Would love to catch up sometime." My blood ran cold as I watched him type back a casual response, something neutral about being busy with work. Over the next weeks, the messages escalated. Sarah went from friendly catching up to flirtatious suggestions, from asking about his work to commenting on his photos, from subtle hints to outright propositions. Daniel showed me every single message, and we made a decision together. We wouldn't block her. We'd document everything. Because Sarah had mentioned something interesting in one of her drunk calls. She was engaged to a guy named Marcus Sheffield, and the wedding was being planned for next spring. Marcus Sheffield. Daniel went pale when he heard the name. Marcus was his best friend from childhood, the guy who'd been his roommate in college, the one who'd stood beside him at our wedding. They'd lost touch over the past few years due to Marcus's demanding surgical residency, but Daniel had known Marcus was serious about someone. He just hadn't known that someone was my sister. "This is perfect," I told Daniel that night, an idea forming in my mind. "She wants to destroy us? We're going to destroy her. But we're going to do it smart." Daniel reconnected with Marcus the next day. Casual messages about catching up after too long. Within a week, they were having coffee, reminiscing about old times. Marcus was ecstatic about his engagement, showed photos of Sarah that made Daniel's jaw tighten, talked about how she was the most amazing woman he'd ever met. "She's had some family drama," Marcus confided. "Doesn't talk to her sister much. Something about jealousy over an ex-boyfriend years ago." I listened to Daniel's report that evening with cold satisfaction. Sarah had rewritten history, made herself the victim. Of course she had. Marcus asked Daniel to be his best man 2 weeks later. Daniel accepted without hesitation, came home and showed me the text. "He has no idea who he's marrying," Daniel said quietly. "Should we tell him now?" "No," I replied, my mind already racing ahead. "We tell everyone. At the wedding. When she thinks she's won everything." Sarah's messages to Daniel continued, growing more desperate as the wedding approached. She sent photos of herself, asked if he thought she looked good in her dress fittings, called him late at night when she knew I'd be asleep. Daniel recorded every call, saved every message, built our case brick by brick. She sent voice memos talking about how she'd only gotten pregnant to trap Jason because she was jealous of my relationship with him, how she'd always regretted not pursuing Daniel when we first started dating. "I saw your wedding photos," she slurred in one 3 a.m. recording. "Should have been me in that dress. I'm prettier than Victoria. Everyone knows it. Why'd you pick her?" The wedding invitation arrived in March, thick cardstock with gold embossing. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Sarah Elizabeth, to Dr. Marcus Sheffield." I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of it, imagining Sarah's satisfaction at sending this to me. Daniel's invitation came separately, an elegant best man proposal card. "Are we really doing this?" Daniel asked me that night. I thought about my graduation party, about Sarah's cold smile, about 10 years of her playing victim while I rebuilt my life from the ruins she'd created. "Yes," I said. "We're doing this." The next months were meticulous planning. Daniel maintained friendly contact with Marcus, learned every detail about the wedding venue, the guest list, the schedule. The reception was at the Heritage Estate, a historic mansion with state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment for speeches and presentations. Perfect. I hired a private investigator to compile everything we had on Sarah's history. Her pattern of manipulation and lies. Bank records showed she'd been receiving money from Jason monthly, child support for Emma, but also discovered she'd been seeing other men throughout her engagement to Marcus. Credit card statements revealed expensive gifts purchased for someone Marcus had never met, hotel stays when she'd told him she was visiting friends. Sarah hadn't changed at all. She'd just gotten better at hiding it. My parents called me in April. Sarah wants to reconcile, Mom said, her voice hopeful. She asked if you'd come to the wedding. She's your only sister, Victoria. I'll think about it, I lied, knowing I'd be there, but not as the forgiving sister Sarah expected. Daniel's relationship with Marcus deepened as the wedding approached. They met weekly, Daniel carefully steering conversations to learn Marcus's deepest feelings about marriage, about trust, about honesty. Marcus talked about his parents' divorce, how his father's infidelity had destroyed his family, how he'd rather die alone than be with someone who lied to him. Every word was ammunition we stored away. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah sent Daniel a photo of herself in lingerie with a message. Last chance to change your mind about who you married. Daniel showed it to me without expression. I forwarded it to our growing evidence file and smiled. The rehearsal dinner was torture. I attended as Daniel's wife, watching Sarah play the blushing bride, her hand constantly touching Marcus's arm, her laughter bright and false. She saw me across the room and her smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered, came over with Marcus in tow. Victoria, she said, embracing me like we were close. I'm so glad you came. Let's put the past behind us. Marcus shook my hand, genuinely warm. I've heard so much about you. Sarah says you two had some disagreements, but family is family, right? I smiled back. Absolutely. Family is everything. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, trying to read my expression. She'd expected me to refuse the invitation, to be the bitter sister who couldn't move on. My acceptance confused her, put her off balance. Good. The night before the wedding, Daniel and I reviewed our plan one final time. We had screenshots organized by date, audio files queued and ready, video clips edited together. Daniel had worked with the Heritage Estates technical team earlier that week, claiming he wanted to surprise Marcus with a special best man presentation. They'd helped him set up his laptop connection to the main projection system, tested the audio, showed him how to override any other presentations. Last chance to back out, Daniel said, but he was smiling. He knew me better than that. She destroyed my graduation, I replied. Turnabout is fair play. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm, the kind of day Sarah had probably dreamed about since she was a little girl. I dressed carefully in my emerald gown, the same shade I'd worn as her maid of honor a decade ago. Daniel wore his navy suit, the one from our wedding. When I saw him in it, the symbolism wasn't lost on me. The ceremony was beautiful, I had to admit. The Heritage Estates gardens were decorated with thousands of white roses, strings of lights waiting for evening, an elegant arch where Sarah and Marcus would exchange vows. 200 guests filled the white chairs, everyone dressed in their finest. My parents sat in the front row, Mom already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, Dad looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. I sat near the back with Daniel, watching Sarah make her grand entrance. She was stunning in her designer gown, all lace and crystals, a cathedral train that took 2 flower girls to manage. Marcus's face when he saw her was pure love, and for a brief moment, I almost felt guilty about what we were going to do. Almost. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Traditional vows, readings about love and commitment, a solo performance of At Last that had half the guests crying. Sarah glowed, Marcus beamed. The officiant spoke about the sanctity of marriage and the importance of honesty between partners. I caught Daniel's eye and he gave me a small nod. Soon, the reception began with cocktail hour while the wedding party took photos. Servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Guests mingled in the mansion's grand ballroom, admiring the lavish centerpieces and the massive cake display. I nursed a single glass of wine, needing to stay sharp, watching Sarah hold court like the queen she'd always imagined herself to be. Dinner was a plated affair. Filet mignon and Chilean sea bass, wines paired specifically for each course. The conversations around us buzzed with compliments about the venue, the food, how beautiful Sarah looked. My mother stopped by our table, kissed my cheek, whispered how happy she was that her daughters were finally getting along. The guilt tried to surface again. I pushed it down. The speeches began after dessert. Sarah's father, my father, stood first with trembling hands, talked about watching his little girl grow up, how proud he was of the woman she'd become. I wondered if he'd forgotten about my graduation party, or if he'd just chosen to forgive her because that's what fathers did for their favorite daughters. Marcus's mother spoke next about welcoming Sarah into their family, about the grandchildren she hoped would come soon. Then Daniel stood, microphone in hand, my husband in his wedding suit looking every bit the polished professional he was. Sarah noticed the suit. I saw recognition flash across her face, followed by confusion. Marcus grinned at his best friend, anticipating some embarrassing story from their college days. "Thank you all for being here," Daniel began, his voice steady and clear. "I've known Marcus since we were 8 years old. He's been my brother in every way that matters, which is why what I'm about to do is the hardest thing I've ever had to do." The room quieted, sensing a shift in tone. Sarah's smile froze on her face. "Sarah," Daniel continued, turning to face her directly. "Before you marry my best friend, I think everyone here should know about the 15 messages you sent me last month asking me to meet you for drinks." The silence was immediate and absolute. Sarah's face went white, then red, her mouth opening in protest. Daniel clicked a button on his phone, and the giant screen behind the head table, the one that had been showing a slideshow of Sarah and Marcus's relationship, suddenly filled with screenshots of text messages. "Sarah, hey Dan, you free this weekend? Would love to catch up over drinks." Sarah, "Marcus doesn't have to know. It could be our secret." Sarah, "I keep thinking about what could have been if I'd met you first instead of Victoria." The messages kept coming, each one more damning than the last. Guests gasped, heads swiveling between the screen and Sarah's horrified expression. Marcus stood frozen at the head table, his champagne glass tilted at a dangerous angle. "There's more," Daniel said calmly. "These are voice messages Sarah left me when she'd been drinking. I think everyone should hear what she really thinks about this marriage." He pressed play, and Sarah's drunk voice filled the ballroom, slurred and raw. "I never loved Jason. Dan, it was always you. Victoria doesn't deserve someone like you. She's boring and plain, and I'm so much better for you. I only got with Jason because Dad loved her more and I wanted to hurt her. I trapped him with a fake pregnancy timeline. Did you know that? I wasn't even 12 weeks along at her graduation. I just wanted to ruin her special day." My mother's gasp cut through the recording. My father's face had gone gray. Sarah's voice continued. "Marcus is nice, but he's not you. He's just successful and I need financial security. But I'd leave him in a heartbeat if you'd have me. Please, Dan, please choose me this time." Marcus's champagne glass hit the floor and shattered. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had held the room frozen. He turned to Sarah, his face a mixture of devastation and rage I'd never seen on anyone before. "Tell me this is fake," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me he's lying." Sarah stood, her hands reaching for him. "Marcus, baby, I can explain. I was drunk. I didn't mean any of that. He's manipulating the audio. I have the original files," Daniel interrupted. "Time-stamped, dated, sent from your number. I also have these." More images appeared on the screen. Photos of Sarah with another man at a hotel. Credit card receipts for gifts she'd never given Marcus, bank transfers to accounts he'd never seen. Our private investigator had been thorough. Marcus ripped the wedding band off his finger and threw it at Sarah's feet. The platinum band bounced twice on the marble floor before rolling under a table. "We're done," he said, his voice breaking. "I trusted you. I loved you." He strode toward the exit, his groomsmen scrambling to follow. The massive oak doors slammed behind him with a sound that echoed through the ballroom like a death knell. Sarah spun to face me, mascara already streaming down her face. "You planned this," she hissed. "You vindictive bitch, you planned this whole thing." I stood slowly, setting down my wine glass with deliberate care. Every eye in that ballroom was on me now. "I didn't send those messages, Sarah. You did. I didn't lie about being pregnant at someone's graduation party. You did. I didn't spend 10 years playing victim while actually being the villain. That was all you." "I'm your sister," she screamed. "You stopped being my sister the night you slept with Jason," I replied calmly. "You just proved you haven't changed. You're still the same person who would destroy anyone's happiness if it meant getting what you want." My mother rushed to Sarah, trying to wrap her arms around her sobbing daughter. "How could you do this, Victoria? At her wedding. This is cruel." "Cruel?" I turned to my mother, feeling 10 years of suppressed rage finally surface. "You want to talk about cruel? Where were you when Sarah announced her fake pregnancy at my graduation? When she stole my boyfriend and then played victim? When she rewrote history to make me the jealous sister? Dad stood, his face still ashen. Victoria's right, Margaret. We've let Sarah get away with too much for too long. Sarah's sobs grew louder, more theatrical. Guests were pulling out their phones, recording everything. The wedding planner hovered near the doors, clearly debating whether to intervene. Catering staff had frozen mid-service, watching the drama unfold. Jason appeared from somewhere in the crowd, Emma clutching his hand. My niece was 10 now, old enough to understand what was happening. She stared at her mother with wide, confused eyes. Sarah? Jason's voice cut through her crying. Is what she said true? About the pregnancy timeline? Sarah's head snapped up. Don't you start. You know how Victoria lies about everything. I pulled the hospital records, I said quietly, producing a folder from my purse. Emma was born full term, 8.5 pounds, on November 3rd. You announced your pregnancy on May 15th at my graduation, claiming you were 12 weeks along. That would make your due date in late November or early December. I opened the folder, showed the medical documents to Jason. You weren't 12 weeks pregnant. You were barely 8 weeks along. You lied about the timeline to maximize drama. Jason's face crumpled. Jesus Christ, Sarah. I did it for us, Sarah shrieked. You were going to leave me for her. I saw how you looked at Victoria. I had to make sure you stayed. You trapped me, Jason said slowly, the realization hitting him. You trapped me with a lie. Emma started crying, and Jason scooped her up, carrying her out of the ballroom. Sarah reached for them, but he kept walking, his daughter's face buried in his shoulder. The remaining guests had divided into factions. Some glared at me like I was the villain. Others whispered behind their hands about Sarah's behavior. My father's colleagues from his accounting firm looked deeply uncomfortable. Sarah's friends from her various abandoned careers clustered together, shooting venomous looks in my direction. Daniel stood beside me, his hand finding mine. We should go, he murmured. Not yet, I replied. I had one more thing to say. I walked to the center of the ballroom, took the microphone Daniel had set down. I want everyone here to understand something. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. Sarah has spent her entire life manipulating people, lying to get what she wants, and then playing victim when she faces consequences. Sarah lunged at me, but Dad caught her arm, held her back. She fought against his grip, screaming obscenities. She didn't just steal my boyfriend, I continued. She destroyed my college graduation, my trust in family, my ability to believe in relationships. She made me question my own worth for years, and she was about to do the same thing to Marcus, a good man who deserved to know the truth before he legally tied himself to someone who was already cheating on him. I wasn't cheating, Sarah shrieked. I pulled out another set of photos, these ones showing Sarah with a man named Derek Chen, someone our investigator had identified as a former colleague. Hotel receipts from 6 different occasions over the past 3 months, I said calmly. Derek's testimony about your relationship, text messages talking about your boring fiancé, and how you couldn't wait to have his money but still have fun on the side. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Several guests got up and left, shaking their heads. The wedding planner finally approached, wringing her hands. I think we need to end this evening, she said nervously. Agreed, I replied, handing her the microphone. As guests filed out, some stopped to speak to me. Marcus's mother touched my arm, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, better now than after they were married. Sarah collapsed in a chair, her expensive dress pooling around her, ruined makeup streaking her face. My mother sat beside her, stroking her hair, but even she looked shaken by the revelations. Dad stood apart, staring at his daughter like he'd never really seen her before. Daniel and I walked out of the Heritage Estate into the cool evening air. Behind us, I could hear Sarah's wails echoing through the gardens, the sound of a woman finally facing real consequences for the first time in her life. You okay? Daniel asked as we reached our car. I took a deep breath, felt something light and free settle in my chest where bitter resentment had lived for a decade. Yeah, I said. I really am. The aftermath was swift and brutal, exactly as I'd planned. By morning, the wedding disaster had spread across social media. Guests had posted videos, screenshots of the messages had been shared thousands of times, and Sarah's name was trending locally with hashtags like Wedding Revenge and Banchau's Sister Drama. The Heritage Estate's event coordinator called to inform us they'd be keeping Sarah's deposit due to extensive emotional distress caused to staff and damage to the venue's reputation. Marcus filed annulment papers on Monday morning. Since the marriage was never officially completed, there was nothing to dissolve. But he wanted legal documentation of the canceled ceremony. His lawyer also sent Sarah a cease and desist letter, prohibiting her from contacting him or his family ever again. Jason called me 3 days after the wedding. "I'm filing for full custody of Emma," he said, his voice hollow. "I've been documenting everything for years. Sarah's drinking, her neglect, the men she brings around Emma. I stayed because I thought she needed me, but I was just enabling her. I'm sorry," I told him, and I meant it. Jason had been collateral damage in Sarah's war against me, trapped in a marriage built on manipulation. "Don't be. You freed me too." He paused. "Emma asked about you. She wants to know her aunt. The request surprised me." "I'd like that," I said softly. Sarah's life unraveled rapidly. The scandal cost her the retail management job she'd finally held for more than a year. Her landlord evicted her from the apartment she'd been renting, citing the media attention and harassment from angry internet commenters as creating an unsafe environment for other tenants. She moved back in with our parents, but even that sanctuary was temporary. Dad called me 2 weeks after the wedding. "Your mother and I are separating," he said quietly. This situation with Sarah forced us to look at a lot of things we'd been ignoring for years. Margaret enabled Sarah's behavior, always making excuses, always cleaning up her messes. "I can't do it anymore." "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm not. I should have stood up for you years ago, at your graduation, when Sarah pulled that stunt. I chose peace over principle, and that was wrong." His voice cracked. "I'm proud of you, Victoria. You became successful despite everything, not because of family support. That takes real strength." The words I'd wanted to hear for a decade finally arrived, and they brought tears I didn't expect. Marcus reached out to Daniel a month later. They met for coffee the first time since the wedding. Marcus looked thinner, older, but somehow lighter. "I'm grateful," he told Daniel. "If you hadn't done what you did, I'd be married to someone who never loved me. I'd have wasted years, maybe had kids with her, before discovering the truth." "I'm sorry it had to be so public," Daniel replied. "Don't be. Sarah needed an audience. She always needed an audience." Marcus smiled sadly. "I heard she's trying to sell her story to tabloids now, painting herself as the victim of a coordinated attack by her jealous sister and ex-husband." She was. Sarah had contacted 3 different gossip magazines with her version of events, claiming I'd been obsessed with ruining her happiness, that Daniel had led her on, that Marcus was controlling and she'd been trying to escape. None of them ran the story. The evidence was too overwhelming, the truth too obvious. Derek Chen, the man she'd been seeing behind Marcus's back, went public with his own statement. He hadn't known she was engaged, thought they were in an exclusive relationship, felt used and manipulated himself. The statement destroyed any remaining sympathy Sarah might have garnered. Child Protective Services opened an investigation into Sarah's fitness as a parent after multiple anonymous reports about her drinking and unstable living situation. Jason's custody filing included documented evidence of Sarah leaving Emma alone, bringing strange men around their daughter, spending child support money on designer clothes and bottles of wine instead of Emma's needs. I followed the custody case from a distance, providing character witness testimony when Jason's lawyer requested it. I described growing up with Sarah, her pattern of manipulation and lies, her inability to take responsibility for her actions. The judge awarded Jason full custody, with Sarah getting supervised visitation twice a month. Sarah showed up at my office 3 months after the wedding, somehow bypassing building security. She looked haggard, her designer wardrobe replaced by jeans and a stained t-shirt, her hair unwashed and pulled into a messy bun. "You've destroyed my life," she said, standing in my doorway. I looked up from my computer calmly. "I didn't destroy anything, Sarah. I just revealed who you already were. I've lost everything. Marcus, Emma, my job, my apartment. Mom and Dad are divorcing because of this. Are you happy now? You lost Emma because you're a negligent mother. You lost Marcus because you were cheating on him and using him for money. You lost your job because your employer didn't want the controversy. You lost your apartment for the same reason." I stood, facing her directly. "And Mom and Dad are divorcing because Dad finally opened his eyes to 30 years of Mom enabling your toxic behavior. None of that is my fault. You could have talked to me privately. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of 200 people. Like you talked to me privately before sleeping with Jason? Before announcing your fake pregnancy at my graduation in front of 100 people? before sending my husband inappropriate messages and trying to destroy my marriage? She had no answer for that. Here's the truth, Sarah. You've coasted your entire life on being pretty and playing victim. You've manipulated people, lied, cheated, and never faced real consequences because mom and dad always bailed you out. I did you a favor by exposing you now, before you could trap Marcus in a marriage and destroy his life the way you destroyed Jason's. I'm your sister. She whispered. You stopped being my sister a long time ago. You made that choice when you decided hurting me was more important than loving me. Security arrived then, having been alerted by my assistant. They escorted Sarah out of the building while she screamed about family loyalty and forgiveness. I watched from my office window as they walked her to the street, then returned to my work without a second thought. 2 years have passed since the wedding that never was. I'm sitting in my newly expanded office, Vice President of Marketing now, looking at photos of my goddaughter Emma on my desk. Jason and I have built a tentative friendship based on shared experience and genuine care for his daughter. Emma calls me Aunt Vic, spends every other weekend at our house, lights up when she sees Daniel. She's doing better now. Therapy, helping her process her mother's abandonment and manipulation. Marcus is engaged again, this time to a pediatric surgeon he met through work. She's kind and genuine. Everything Sarah pretended to be. He asked Daniel to be his best man again. And this time, there will be no dramatic revelations. Just two people who actually love each other making a commitment they intend to keep. My parents finalized their divorce last year. Dad moved to Colorado to be closer to his sister. Started hiking and photography. Looks happier than I've seen him in decades. Mom stayed in Michigan with Sarah, still making excuses, still enabling. Some people never learn. Sarah's life continued its downward spiral. She lost her visitation rights with Emma after showing up drunk to a supervised visit and verbally abusing the court-appointed monitor. She's been in and out of rehab twice, each time checking herself out early and blaming everyone else for her problems. Last I heard, she was working as a night shift gas station clerk and living in a studio apartment in the worst part of town. Jason sent me a photo last week. Emma's 10th birthday party, smiling and surrounded by friends, holding a certificate for making honor roll. Thank you, his message said, for giving me the courage to break free. Daniel and I are trying for a baby now, something I never thought I'd want after Sarah's pregnancy manipulation. But therapy helped me separate my sister's toxic behavior from my own desires, and I'm ready to build the family I actually want, not the one that damaged me. The wedding video still circulates online occasionally, usually with commentary about narcissism and toxic family dynamics. I don't watch it anymore. I don't need to. I lived it, survived it, and came out stronger. Sometimes people ask if I regret how public the revelation was, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is simple. No. Sarah had spent 32 years facing no real consequences for her actions. She needed to understand that choices have outcomes, that manipulation eventually catches up with you, that playing victim doesn't work when everyone can see the truth. I didn't destroy Sarah's life. She did that herself through years of lies, manipulation, and cruelty. I simply made sure the truth was visible to everyone she was trying to fool. And if that wedding disaster saved Marcus from years of misery, if it gave Jason the evidence he needed to protect Emma, if it finally forced my family to stop pretending Sarah's behavior was acceptable, then it was absolutely worth it. Last month, Sarah sent me a friend request on social media. I deleted it without a second thought. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some people don't deserve second chances. And some sisters are better off as strangers. I'm at peace with my choices. I sleep soundly at night knowing I stopped a destructive person from destroying another innocent man. I have a career I love, a husband who respects me, a goddaughter who trusts me, and a future unburdened by toxic family obligations. Sarah wanted to know if I was happy. The answer is yes, deliriously, completely, unapologetically happy. And unlike her happiness, which was always built on manipulation and lies, mine is built on truth, hard work, and genuine connection. That's the real victory. Not the ruined wedding or the public humiliation, but the life I built for myself despite her attempts to tear me down. She tried to break me at 22. Instead, she made me stronger, sharper, more determined to succeed. And when I look at my life now, successful and surrounded by people who actually love me, I realize Sarah did me a favor back at that graduation party. She showed me exactly who she was, and I believed her. Everything that happened afterward was just me making sure everyone else could see what I'd always known. Some call it revenge. I call it justice. And justice, unlike revenge, leaves no room for regret. Update. 2 years later. The coffee shop where I'm meeting Emma is one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. The kind 13-year-old girls think makes them sophisticated. She's waiting at a corner table when I arrive, nose buried in a book about marine biology, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that makes her look startlingly like Jason. Aunt Vic! She jumps up to hug me, all gangly teenage energy and genuine affection. This weekly tradition started 6 months ago when she asked if we could have just us time away from her dad and Daniel. I cherish these hours more than she probably realizes. We order our drinks, her a vanilla latte with extra whipped cream, me a simple black coffee, and settle into our usual corner. She tells me about school, about her marine biology project, about the boy she might like but isn't sure, normal teenage things. Safe things. Then she sets down her cup and looks at me with Jason's serious eyes. I saw Mom last week. My hand tightens around my coffee cup. I thought the supervised visits stopped. They did. She was outside my school, just standing there across the street, watching. Emma's voice is carefully neutral, the tone of someone who's learned to protect themselves from disappointment. She didn't try to talk to me or anything. She just stood there for like 20 minutes, then left. Did you tell your dad? Yeah. He filed another restraining order violation report. She picks at her napkin, shredding it into tiny pieces. The thing is, Aunt Vic, I don't feel anything when I see her. Shouldn't I feel something? She's my mom. This is the conversation I've been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. Biology doesn't obligate you to feel anything, Em. Sarah made choices that hurt you repeatedly. Feeling nothing is actually really healthy self-protection. Did you feel nothing at her wedding? When you played those messages? The question catches me off guard with its directness. Emma is 13 now, old enough to have Googled what happened, to have seen the videos, to have formed her own opinions. We've never discussed it directly before. No, I answer honestly. I felt satisfied, vindicated, like I was finally correcting a decade-old injustice. Good. Emma's smile is small but fierce. She deserved it. For what she did to you and to Dad and to me. She pauses. I'm glad you're my aunt and not her. The words hit me harder than I expect. This child, who Sarah used as a weapon and then abandoned, has chosen me. Not because of biology or obligation, but because I showed up consistently, loved her genuinely, proved through actions that she mattered. We shift to lighter topics, discussing her upcoming school dance and whether the boy she likes will ask her. When we part ways an hour later, she hugs me tightly and whispers, "Thanks for being real with me." Dad tries, but he still feels guilty about marrying her in the first place. Driving home, I think about Sarah standing outside Emma's school, watching the daughter she lost through her own actions. Part of me wonders if she's capable of genuine regret, or if she's just mourning the loss of control. I suspect the latter. Daniel is cooking dinner when I arrive, something elaborate involving too many pans and ingredients I can't pronounce. He's stress cooking, which means something happened at work. I pour myself wine and settle on a bar stool to watch him. Marcus called today, he says, not looking up from whatever he's sautéing. The wedding is next month. He wants to make sure we're still coming. Of course we are. Why would that change? Sarah contacted him again, sent a letter to his office. Daniel's jaw tightens. Apologizing, asking for closure, saying she's changed and in recovery. The usual manipulation. What did he do? Forwarded it to his lawyer, who sent another cease and desist. But it rattled him, made him wonder if exposing her at the wedding was too harsh, if maybe she really was struggling and we pushed her over the edge. I set down my wine glass with deliberate care. She was already over the edge. We just stopped her from taking Marcus with her. I know. I told him the same thing. But she's good at making people doubt themselves. He finally looks at me, concern etched on his face. Do you ever doubt what we did? Never. Not for a second. I stand, move around the island to wrap my arms around him from behind. We saved Marcus from years of misery. We protected Emma by giving Jason the evidence he needed. We stopped a pattern of abuse that had been going on for decades. I sleep perfectly fine at night. He turns in my arms, kisses my forehead. Your father called too. He's flying in for Marcus's wedding, wants to have dinner with us beforehand. This surprises me. Dad and I talk monthly now, our relationship healing slowly after years of distance, but he rarely travels back to Chicago. Did he say why? Said he has something important to discuss. Daniel returns to his cooking. He sounded happy, though. Not stressed. Dad arrives 3 days before Marcus's wedding, looking tanned and fit from his Colorado lifestyle. We meet at a steakhouse downtown, and he orders bourbon, which is unusual. He's normally a beer guy. I'm getting remarried, he announces after the drinks arrive. Her name is Patricia. We met at a photography class. She's kind and funny and nothing like your mother. Dad, that's wonderful. I'm genuinely happy for him. When? Next spring. Small ceremony in Aspen. Just family and close friends. He pauses. Your mother knows. I told her last week. She didn't take it well. How is Mom? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know. His expression darkens. Still enabling Sarah. They're living together in that apartment, both drinking too much, both blaming everyone else for their problems. I tried to help, offered to pay for quality rehab, therapy, whatever they needed. Your mother accused me of abandoning my daughter in her time of need. Sarah is 34 years old. At some point, her problems are her own responsibility. That's exactly what I said. He takes a long drink. The truth is, leaving your mother and that entire toxic dynamic was the best decision I've made in decades. I can breathe again. I can be happy without guilt. We talk for 2 hours about his new life, his photography, Patricia and her 2 adult sons who he's building relationships with. He asks about my work, my marriage, my time with Emma. He apologizes again for not standing up for me sooner, and I tell him again that I understand, that I've forgiven him. As we're leaving, he stops me outside the restaurant. I heard Sarah contacted Marcus again, sent some letter about closure and recovery. Daniel told me. Marcus's lawyer handled it. Good. Dad's face is grim. I want you to know something, Victoria. Your sister is not in recovery. She's not changed. I know because I still have access to your mother's credit card statements, the one I pay for Emma's benefit. Sarah is spending hundreds of dollars a week on alcohol. She was fired from another job last month for showing up drunk. Whatever letter she sent Marcus was just another manipulation. The information doesn't surprise me, but hearing it confirmed by Dad solidifies something in my mind. Sarah will never change. She will continue this pattern until she hits a bottom so devastating that even she can't manipulate her way out of it, or until she drinks herself to death. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. Marcus's wedding is everything the first attempt wasn't. Genuine, joyful, filled with people who actually love and support the couple. His bride, Rebecca, is radiant. Marcus looks happier than I've ever seen him. And when Daniel gives his best man speech, it's funny and heartfelt with no dramatic revelations required. During the reception, Rebecca seeks me out. I wanted to thank you, she says quietly. Marcus told me everything about what happened with Sarah, what you and Daniel did. If you hadn't exposed her, I might never have met him. You don't need to thank me. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it for justice. But I'm still grateful. She squeezes my hand. Some people think what you did was cruel. I think it was brave. I watch her return to Marcus. Watch them dance their first dance as husband and wife. Watch a room full of people celebrating genuine love instead of elaborate deception. This is what happiness looks like when it's built on truth instead of manipulation. Later, as Daniel and I are leaving, my phone buzzes with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer, Victoria. Sarah's voice is slurred, angry. I know you're at Marcus's wedding. I know you convinced him I'm some monster. You've poisoned everyone against me. You poisoned everyone against yourself, Sarah. I just made sure they could see it clearly. I'm your sister. Family is supposed to forgive. Family is supposed to love and support each other. You spent 34 years doing neither. Why would I forgive someone who has never actually been sorry? I am sorry. Her voice breaks into sobs. I'm sorry for everything. The graduation, Jason, the messages to Daniel, all of it. I'm in therapy now. I'm working the steps. I'm trying to be better. That's great, Sarah. Truly. Be better for yourself. But that doesn't mean I have to let you back into my life. Some damage is permanent. Please, Vic. I've lost everything. Mom is all I have left, and the sob becomes a wail. I'm so alone. I just want my sister back. For just a moment, I feel it. That pull of shared childhood. Of being little girls who once loved each other before jealousy and competition poisoned everything. Then I remember her cold smile at my graduation. Her voice on those recordings. Emma's careful emotional distance from the mother who abandoned her. I'm not your sister anymore, Sarah. I haven't been for a long time. You made sure of that. I pause, choosing my final words carefully. I hope you find peace. I hope you get sober and build a life worth living. But that journey doesn't include me. Goodbye. I block the number before she can respond. Daniel takes my hand as we walk to our car. You okay? Yeah, I say, and I mean it. I really am. Because the truth is, I don't carry Sarah's pain anymore. I don't carry guilt for her choices or responsibility for her healing. I built a life she can't touch, surrounded by people who actually love me, doing work that fulfills me, married to a man who respects and protects me. Sarah wanted to destroy me at 22. Instead, she showed me exactly what kind of person I didn't want to become. And in running from her example, I became someone I'm genuinely proud of. That's not revenge. That's not even justice. That's just the natural consequence of treating people with cruelty while expecting to be treated with grace. Sarah is reaping exactly what she sowed. And I'm reaping the rewards of choosing truth over manipulation, boundaries over obligation, and self-respect over toxic family ties. 2 years after the wedding that never was, I'm finally completely free.